You are welcome to this press conference. Um, this is the third in this particular series. Pursuant to our goal in promoting electoral integrity through non-partisan and independent citizens observation, YIAGA Africa deployed, like we mentioned to you yesterday, 682 observers to observe governorship elections in polling units, local government areas, and state resort collation centers in 642 local government areas and 29 states. These include 642 stationary observers, 40 roving observers, and an additional 8 working group members. YIAGA Africa deployed a robust election observation methodology that includes observation of election day process from opening and setup of the polling unit, accreditation, voting, announcement, and the posting of official results. At the polling unit, these process actually enable YIAGA Africa to assess the conduct and the election at both polling unit and collation centers. Our watching the vote findings. The findings presented in this statement are based on the information received from the watching the vote observers on the conduct of election at the polling unit and the commencement of collation at the local government collation centers. As at 7:30 a.m., YIAGA Africa watching the vote observers reported that INEC officials had arrived at 56% of the 663 polling units visited across the 29 states. By 9 a.m., 77% of the 663 polling units visited had commenced accreditation and voting. 585 of the polling units visited had 4 or more polling officials present, of which at least 2 are female. The polling unit visited in the northwest geopolitical zones had fewer women as polling officials than other zones. 95% of these 584 polling units visited had security personnel present. Of the 855 polling units visited, of the 585 polling units visited, APC party agents were present in 76% of the polling unit and PDP party agent in 97% of the polling unit. Essential materials, including registered voters, indelible ink, and others, were present in 99% of the 585 polling units. Specifically, smart card readers were present in 99% of the polling units visited. Election day procedure at the polling unit, accreditation and voting, counting, commencement, and the posting of official results. The smart card reader was used throughout the accreditation of voters in 98% of the 625 polling units visited or observed, while in 2% of this polling unit, the smart card reader was not used throughout the accreditation process. Not more than 5 persons were allowed to vote without PVC in 1% of the 625 polling units. No one was permitted to vote if their PVC could not be verified by the smart card reader in 98% of the 625 polling units observed. In 93% of the 622 polling units observed, INEC polling officials counted the number of unused governorship ballot papers. In 88% of these polling units, INEC polling officials counted the number of spoiled governorship ballot papers. In 86% of the 622 polling units, INEC polling officials counted the number of counterfeit for the governorship ballot papers. In 97% of the 622 polling units, INEC polling officials showed how every governorship ballot paper was marked to all party agents and observers present. 3. Misconduct at the polling unit. Voters were intimidated, harassed, or assaulted in 10% of the 625 polling units observed during accreditation and voting. INEC polling officials were intimidated, harassed, or assaulted in 6% of the 625 polling units during accreditation and voting. Women were intimidated, harassed, or assaulted in 9% of the 625 polling units observed during accreditation and voting. Party agents attempted to influence voters or INEC polling officials in 18% of the 625 polling units. Incidents of intimidation, harassment, or violence during counting were reported in 7% of the 622 polling units observed. Findings on the result collation process at the local government result collation centers. YIAGA Africa Watching the Vote deployed stationary observers to all 642 local government areas and 29 state collation centers, and is able to provide a nationwide assessment of the collation results process. This report provides findings as observed in local government area collation centers, where Watching the Vote observers were allowed to observe, and also only the local government areas where collation has commenced, concluded, or almost concluded. 1. Arrival and commencement of result collation process. The Watching the Vote observers reported that collation officials arrived in 28% of the 642 local government area collation centers before 6 p.m. Access to result collation centers. In 3% of the 542 local government result collation centers, Watching the Vote observers were not allowed to observe. This was very unfortunate, and we raised that earlier yesterday. The presence of security personnel and political party representatives. Security agents were present in 99% of the 543 local government collation centers. An average of 9 party agents were seen in these local government collation centers. Results collection process. In 99% of the 410 local government collation centers, gubernatorial results from EC8BS for all polling units from wards were transmitted to the collation officer. In 99% of the 408 local government centers, collation officers entered the vote for the gubernatorial elections in the original form EC8C in words and figures. In 83% of the 406 local government area collation centers, an INEC official cross-checked the total with the Electronic Collations Support Secretariat for computational accuracy. In 50% of the 407 local government collation centers, an INEC officials transferred the number of registered voters or polling units where the election was cancelled or not held from Form EC40G to Form EC40G1 for all wards. In 97% of the 407 local government area collation centers, INEC collation officers requested party agents present to countersign the result form. In 92% of the 406 local government collation centers, APC and PDP party agents presence countersigned the result summary forms. In 72% of the 604 local government areas collation centers, other political party agents other than the APC and PDP agents countersigned result summary forms. In 96% of the 407 local government collation centers, INEC officials distributed copies of the form EC8C to party agents and security agents present. INEC collation officials publicly posted the summary of the result in 67% of the 407 local government collation centers. No political party agent disagreed with the result declared in 90% of the 406 local government area collation centers. There were incidents of intimidation, harassment, or violence in 8% of the 407 local government area collation centers. There was an attempt to disrupt collation process in 7% of the 407 local government collation centers. Critical incidents. YIAGA received a total of 124 confirmed incidents reports during the governorship elections. Some of these include: 1. Voter inducement and vote buying. Reports on voter inducement and vote buying were observed across the state. Specifically, YIAGA Africa received the most report of vote inducement and vote buying in Adamawa, Borno, Nasarawa, Kwara, Oyo, Rivers, Kaduna, and Zamfara state. 2. Observers not allowed to observe at the local government. Reports of accredited observers and some cases party agents not allowed to observe collation process were reported from Uruam, Okanafum, and Ikodepeni local government in Cross River State. Akwa Ibom State. Akwa Ibom State. Ado local government area in Benue State, Ethiopia East, Ugeli South, and Ugeli North local government areas in Delta State, Asari Toru, Eleme, Gokana, Opobo, Nekoro, and Oyibo local government areas of River State, Salame and Yabo local government area of Sokoto State, in Safe local government area in Zamfara State, and Ohazara local government area collection centers in Ebonyi State. 3. Military interference in the process. Reports of military personnel chasing away observers and some party agents in some local government collection centers were reported in Iruam, Okanafon, and the Kodepene local government areas of Akwa Ibom State, Ethiopia East, Ugeli South, Ugeli North local government areas of Delta State, and in Eleme, Gokana, Opobo, Nekoro, and Oyibo local government areas of River State. Bypass of result collation process. Reports of bypass of collation process where results were either not collated at the local government areas level or the results not announced at the local government area levels were observed. Were observed in 1. Amuwo Odofin local government area collations for the governorship elections, as the INEC officials insisted on collating at the INEC Ikeja office. This was also the case in Orelokwe local government area in Oyo State, in Ohoazara local government area collation center in Ebonyi State, and Rimi local government collation center in Katsina State. In Oshogbo local government area, Ogbomosho local government area, the INEC officials refused to announce the governorship result at the INEC local government secretariat, but gave duplicate copies to party agents and security officials. The materials were moved to Oyo State INEC secretariat at Agodi, Ibadan. In Abeokuta South local government areas, the collation officers insisted on announcing the local government governorship result in the Ogun State INEC office. The duplicate copy of results was, however, given to APC, APM, and PDP party agents. The announcement of governorship results in Ibadan North local government area was disrupted for security reasons, and for security reasons moved to the Oyo State INEC office at Ibadan. This was also the case in Ebesipo, Usata, and Akampa local government areas in Akwa Ibom State. Reports of overvoting. The result collation officers for Obi local government area in Benue State refused to announce the governorship result in the local government area because the result for the State Assembly election announced earlier had the number of accredited voters more than the number of voters in the register for Ado local government area. Attempt to disrupt the result collation process. There were reports on attempt to disrupt the local government result collation process in Tongo and Hong local government areas in Adamawa State. Political thugs arrived the venue of the collation process in APC branded vehicle in Hong and attempted to snatch ballot boxes. They were apprehended and one was killed and another sustained injuries. The Ohoada East local government area collation process was disrupted by unknown gunmen. The collation was therefore moved to the INEC River State office in Port Harcourt. 7. Intimidation and harassment. Unknown men attack INEC officials and party agents in Nwanyam Council Ward in Konshisha local government area of Benue State. They were beaten, the vehicle and election materials were burnt. Issues and concerns. 1. Destruction of democratic institution. YIAGA is concerned with the effort by a political class to undermine democratic institutions like INEC and Nigerian police. This do-or-die attitude of political class poses a huge threat to Nigeria's democracy as agencies of the states like the Nigerian Army are deployed to interfere with the electoral process despite legal limits to their involvement in elections. YIAGA Africa is also condemned the destruction and vandalization of INEC offices, all in the bid to prevent the Electoral Commission from conducting elections. The common good should be the ultimate goal for public leadership, but it appears politicians are determined to subvert the electoral process for their personal gains. 2. Declining integrity of electoral process. The reports on non-compliance with electoral guidelines and procedural lapses in our electoral process could potentially undermine the integrity of our elections. YIAGA Africa is concerned with the flagrant abuse of guidelines on collation of results. In some cases, INEC officials intentionally bypassed the ward and local government collation centers and proceeded to the state collation centers. In some cases, INEC officials instructed security agents to deny accredited observers access to result collation centers. This occurred in Ado local government area in Benue State, Osuru local government area in Imo State, Rimi local government area in Katsina State, and Yabo local government area in Sokoto State. 3. Threat to press freedom and civil society. The attack on journalists and civil society actors during the elections is unconstitutional and condemnable, and stands condemned, actually. During the March 9th elections, journalists and observers were intimidated, abducted, and assaulted. For instance, a journalist with Premium Times was intimidated and abducted by thugs and party loyalists while on election duty for exposing underage voting in the polling unit in Plateau State. Watching the vote observers were also intimidated and threatened while observing the elections. Poor voter turnout. Throughout result collation, although the result collection is ongoing and a definite figure on turnout can only be determined after the elections, YIAGA Africa notes the poor level of turnout for the elections. This has implications for political legitimacy and citizenship. YIAGA Africa believes a post-election audit will unravel the factors affecting voters' turnout. Vote buying and selling. As noted in previous Watching the Vote observation report, the March 9th election was characterized with higher level of vote buying and selling in some centers. The elections was determined by the highest bidder. What is most astonishing is the poor number of arrests despite reported cases of vote buying. Violence and killings. YIAGA Africa notes with great concern the level of violence resulting to loss of lives and destruction of properties. It is unacceptable that Nigeria continues to witness the orgy of violence during elections. Our recommendations. In view of the foregoing, YIAGA Watching the Vote makes the following recommendations. 1. INEC should proactively release information on the number of cancellations and reasons for the cancellations. This information should be provided to party agents at the collation centers and posted on INEC website. 2. Application of margin of lead principle. YIAGA Africa calls on INEC to ensure collation officers abide by the guidelines and regulations on management of margin of lead principle. Results should not be declared and winners returned where the total number of registered voters in cancelled polling unit will affect the margin of lead between candidates. This is in consonance with sections 26 and 53 of the 2010 Electoral Act as amended. YIAGA Africa calls on INEC to fast-track the process of result collation and announcement. The Electoral Commission owes Nigerians an explanation on the reasons why result collation was suspended in some local government areas on election day. The transparency of the result collation process is central to the integrity of the elections and the acceptability of its outcome. Therefore, INEC must ensure collation centers are accessible to accredited observers, media, and party agents. Prosecution of electoral offenders. The March 9th election was fought with egregious violations of our laws and human rights. YIAGA Africa calls for the prosecution of electoral offenders arrested by security agents. This includes sanction of military personnel who disrupted process for no reasons. Electoral malfeasance will persist if no perpetrator is brought to justice. It will amount to injustice to victims of electoral injustice if perpetrators are not held to account for their infractions. YIAGA Africa commends Nigerians who turned out to vote in the March 9th Governorship, State Assembly, and the Abuja Area Council elections. YIAGA Africa calls on political parties and citizens to maintain the peace as the result collation process continues. INEC remains the only institution with a legal mandate to announce elections results and declare winners as such citizens. Political parties and their supporters should respect this mandate of the Commission and reduce the spread of misinformation. Once again, thank you very much for coming, and thanks for being in solidarity with YIAGA Africa.
Okay, yes, there's one person.
Good afternoon. My name is Toyin Ajolore. I work for On Duty TV. I'm a bit inquisitive about how the person died. Those people that boarded, that went to intimidate a few people, was it that he was shot or what?
Respond to that. Okay, so your question is what happened to the people who, the loss of lives, right? Now, there was an incident in Oyo State where unknown gunmen who were believed to be thugs had shot a current member of the House of Representatives who was taken to the Ibadan Teaching Hospital but later died in the process. There are also reports that someone also died in Enugu as well yesterday. There have been several deaths from these elections, and that is really unacceptable to us. And we believe that for a civil affair like elections, we shouldn't be recording just deaths. Elections ideally should be a fun fair where people celebrate and they proceed to voting centers with joy. But the body bags and the fatalities that we are recording raises a huge source of concern, and we condemn all those acts.
And that's very key. We are very concerned about the level of desperation of our politicians. We wish that desperation is directed at growing our economy and society. We wish the concern is about the poor and the excluded elements within our society. But unfortunately, such desperations are actually for the individual and their families. And that's a big shame that people die in the course of this kind of elections. And until, from our own conviction, until we're able to address very fundamentally as a people and as a nation, the whole principle and the essence of electoral contest. Otherwise, our elections will become one of those desperate exercises that we go through every four years. It's of very, very, very huge concern to a lot of us who are involved in this process, who are very committed to advancing the cause of our democracy, and that every time we have to speak about our elections, we actually have to count the number of people that died while counting the vote that people actually received. So double counting, and that is totally unacceptable. And we think these are some of the conversations that should be taken beyond this elections period and see what can we do differently to reduce the desperation of our politicians, particularly in electoral contest.
Just to add that if you look at our statement, which will be issued shortly, we are still observing the collation process. We have some results, as at this morning, we have results from about 152 local governments across the 29 states. By the end of today, we will have all those concluded, those from the local governments where collation has been concluded. We will have all the results from those local governments. But because we are not deploying the PVT, we will not be verifying the outcome of those elections. But we're keeping watch over the process, and tomorrow we will address another press conference after the declarations have been made at the different states across the 29 states, because our observers are in all the local governments in the 29 states where governorship elections are holding. And so the results are coming in. I just wanted the figure to tell you that at least we have, 430. Okay, so we have results from 413 local governments across the 640 42 local governments where we have. And we'll continue to observe this process from now until tomorrow, pending when the declarations and the elections are concluded. So please feel free. The data center is still open and will be open from now until tomorrow, when we hope to address another press conference to give you updates on the collation process. Once again, thank you very, very much. And see you tomorrow.
I still believe in you, 'cause you've got all it takes to be a greater nation. Nigeria, I still believe in you, 'cause you've got all it takes to be a greater nation.